dry throat time of year when the pollen's falling. As I said earlier, we're going to talk about integrity today. It's a pretty simple but very sublime subject, integrity. It's one of those what the world really needs sermons. The world needs more people of integrity, don't they? Certainly the church does too. We need men and women, boys and girls who will be people of integrity to represent Christ to the world. And if you're not a person of integrity, how are you going to properly proclaim Jesus and effectively to the world? You're not. Now, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Basically, when I say a person of integrity, it's a person of integrity that would be the one who is upright in character, morally good, honest in his or her dealings with others. The word itself, integrity, comes from a Latin word that means untouched. It's related to the word integer. And if you remember from what you learned in math classes in school, an integer is a whole number, one that is undivided, untouched, and uncorrupted. And from that word integer, you get the word integrity. And that's what we need. We need people who are able to resist being touched by corruption and spiritual corrosion. People who can remain united and undivided in their loyalties to Christ, as well as in their loyalties and dealings with each other. And we know that God has always required integrity of His people, has He not? It's simply an expected thing that a person in Christ is to be a person of integrity. In fact, in the Psalms, you find David talking about integrity. We've mentioned it before. You know one of my favorite verses, Psalms chapter 7, verse 8. David asked God to judge his integrity. He said there, "Vindicate me, O Lord, according to my righteousness and my integrity that is within me." What was he asking God to do there? He was asking God to inspect his life. In particular, in this psalm, he's referring to his dealings, recent dealings with King Saul. You remember, Saul had tried to kill him, but David was saying, "I have not dealt deceitfully with Saul. I have not tried to give in return to him what he tried to give to me. He tried to kill me. I did not try to kill him back." And he's saying, "Lord, haven't I been honest with Saul? Haven't I been a person of integrity with Saul? Please judge me on my integrity." I wonder if you and I could have always dared to say that or ask God that question. Pray that prayer. "Lord, judge me on my righteousness and according to my integrity that is within me." In other words, Lord, deal with me as I have dealt with other people. Again, a bold thing to ask, isn't it? Could we dare pray that? Well, we ought to be able to. We ought to be people of integrity. Could we do the same as David did in the matter of our moral standards and our moral dealings with others? Could we do the same thing in our business dealings and so forth and so on? Our employments, our homes, our churches, schools. Could we confidently ask God to judge us the way David did and not have to fear the consequences of that requested judgment? God might be he might sort of grin and say, "Okay, you asked for it, here it comes." Let's talk now about what integrity means, some different aspects of it. First of all, it includes telling the truth in all matters. It means being a person of truth. We know that the Bible vigorously condemns lying. In Proverbs 6, verses 16 through 18, it talks about it. There being one of 6 things God really hates. Lying's one of those things that the Lord hates. And I sure don't like the idea of being guilty of something that the Lord in His own words said, I hate that. In Revelation 21 and verse 8, it says, but for the cowardly and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and immoral persons and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars, their part will be in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. You notice something there? He didn't say all unbelieving, all of murderers, all immoral persons, all sorcerers. He just mentioned them. But when we got to liars, he said, and all liars. That ought to get your attention when you read it, shouldn't it? Lying is one of the things God hates. Now that's pretty plain and to the point, isn't it, the way he said it? We don't want to be guilty of lying then, do we? But you know, in our society today, we're surrounded by it, that subject. People have just become accustomed to lying and accepting lies. It's just part of the way things go nowadays. When we hear on the news that some famous person got caught lying again, business as usual. Let's just switch the channels and watch a rerun of Gunsmoke or something. Nothing new in that. But it shouldn't be that way. When we hear a coworker or fellow student or whatever tell a lie, we just say, well, that's just the way he or she is. Just let it go. Believe it or not. But that is the way it is with the world today. It's prevalent. Lying's the accepted thing in the world today. Parents are teaching their children to lie. But that's not right. It's not the way it has to be, and it's not the way it's supposed to be. But we've been raised on situation ethics, sort of, haven't we? Situation ethics dictates that it's okay to tell a lie if a good purpose is eventually served as a result of that lie. But lying is a sin, and no good purpose will come from it. That's how common and acceptable it's become today. A fisherman got a pretty good reputation for stretching the truth about his fish that he had caught. He bought his own set of scales so he could weigh his own fish and tell people about it. Well, one day, next door neighbor went into labor, about to have a baby. Doctor stopped by, baby was born. He says, hey, wait, you got some scales? We got to weigh this baby to make the certificate official. Guy said, well, no, I don't, but old Randall Simpson next door, he's got a set of scales. Let me go borrow his. They come back over there, use Randall's scales. Guess what? How much that baby weighed, newborn baby? 49 pounds. Now, we laugh at that, but that's the problem. The story I just told you was funny, but lying isn't funny. It's painful and can be fatal. People have been lying so much for so long, they're just into it. They've forgotten the seriousness of lying. They don't even realize the sinfulness of it anymore. When's the last time one of y'all said, hey, honey, I'm going to be out and sitting on the porch or cutting the grass. If somebody calls for me, just tell them I'm not home. That's a bold-faced lie. You're asking someone to tell for you. There are no little lies. And we have to learn that the hard way sometimes, don't we? Little lies have big jaws. So integrity means telling the truth. It means being a whole person, a complete person, an honest person. Liars have to have really good memories too, don't they? If you tell the truth, you don't have to worry about what you told to who, when you told it, and so forth and so on. What else does integrity mean? It means honesty, simply being honest. Boy, isn't that an old-fashioned trait nowadays. It's an out-of-date value. Honesty in business, honesty in school, honesty in your day-to-day routines, personal basis. As an employee, we should give our employer an honest day's work, shouldn't we? The Bible teaches that we have to do that. Go to Ephesians 4:28. There it says, "He who steals must steal no longer, but rather he must labor, performing with his own hands what is good, so that he will have something to share with the one who has need." And Colossians 3:22 says, "Slaves," now this means employees, "in all things obey those who are your masters on earth, not with external or eye service, as those who merely please men, but with sincerity of heart, fearing the Lord." So a servant or a slave here is one who works for another. It's an employee, like you and me either are or were. It says there's not with external service, which same thing as eye service. You know what external or eye service is? What does that phrase mean? Well, it simply means service that's done as long as you're under the eye, the watchful eye of your employer. As long as the boss is looking at you, you're working hard and doing a great job. Your production level is right up there. But when the boss leaves, takes a break or whatever, is not watching, your production level, your performance drops. You slow down. You're not paying as much attention. That's external service or eye service. So we're not to work according to eye service, but in sincerity of heart, fearing God. That would be the person of integrity. Now there's another side of that coin too. How are employers supposed to treat the employees? Well, they're to treat them with integrity also. Colossians 4:1 says, "Masters, grant your slaves justice and fairness, knowing that you too have a master in heaven." So it's a two-way street. If all employees would obey Colossians 3 verse 22 and all employers would obey Colossians 4:1, there wouldn't be any labor problems, would there? How about in school? There's an epidemic of cheating going on in all kinds of schools: grade school, middle school, high school, universities, med school, law school, you name it. Why do people cheat in schools? Well, they got a few people couple decades ago to participate in a survey of cheaters. The four main reasons for cheating in schools was: one, the pressures of the tight job market; secondly, competition for graduate school; third, it freed up more recreational time, party time; and fourth, competition for grades and class standing. Well, I tell you, the one and only real reason for cheating in schools is a decline in human integrity, period. There's the reason for it. And I support or suspect that when those cheaters successfully cheated their way through school and got their degree, got them a good job, and they're building a career, a few years down the road, if somebody cheats them, they get very bitter and upset about that being cheated, don't they? That's like saying, I don't want a pair of shoes that fit both feet. Isn't it? A cheater gets cheated. It's the same thing as saying, I don't want that pair of shoes that fits both feet. How would you like being worked on by a doctor who cheated his way through med school? Defended in court by a lawyer who cheated his way through law school? Being taught by a teacher in school who cheated his or her way through school? They can't teach you nothing. They don't know nothing. They cheated. If we'll just follow the principles of the Bible in integrity, in dealing with people, then we won't have to worry about things like we've just discussed, will we? A lot of people, especially students, say, well, if I don't go along with them, I won't get along with them. I won't be popular. I won't be accepted. Well, who would you rather be accepted by? Some group of lying, cheating, stealing sinners, or Jesus and God? Integrity also means keeping yourself morally pure in a world filled with degradation and corruption. Sin, sexual perversions. Did you know that 85%, this is about a 8 to 10-year-old statistic, 85% of all sexual acts performed on television are between unmarried people? And some of those are usually, those programs, somebody's favorite television program. We've got to watch out what we watch. It's not all right to accept or participate in some things. What kind of people do we want to be popular with? The cheaters, the liars, so forth and so on. Young teenage girl once asked her dad for permission to go start hanging out with this other girl she had met at school. The other girl had a reputation for being sort of worldly. The father said, nope, can't do it. I don't want you hanging around her because of her reputation. Daughter said, well, you just don't know her, and you don't trust me, Dad. And that hurts. Father said, come here. We were at the fireplace. There had been a fire in the fireplace. It's out for a few hours. Everything's cooled off. He says, baby girl, pick up one of those coals. She picked it up. He said, now throw it back down. She threw it back down the fireplace. He said, now look at your hand. It's all black, isn't it? The fire's out. It's not still burning, but you got blackened by the association because you were in contact with it. Left the little girl speechless. Would have left you and me speechless too, probably. The Bible says, shun evil companions. That applies to all people of all ages, doesn't it? We have to teach our children, like this guy taught his little girl. Shun evil companions. You'll be darkened by that association if you don't. But the Lord's Word will get you through things if you let it. We've got to allow it to help us and lead us and guide us and protect us. Every means of communication you can think of today is just loaded with sinful encouragement, isn't it? TV, radio, movies, theaters, recorded music, books, magazines, newspapers, and so on. They're all just loaded with violent, sexual, sensual, alcoholic, drug, and all kinds of stuff. Drink more beer. Look at all the publicity about curing and preventing AIDS and other venereal diseases. They teach everything except the true and real active or cure, abstinence. Use this, use that. Do this, do that. But they don't say, don't do that. outside the bounds of marriage. And there's the cure and the prevention right there, isn't it? They teach everything except abstaining. I like what Job said in Job chapter 31 and verse 1. He said, I have made a covenant with my eyes. How then could I gaze at a virgin? What's he saying here? Well, he's saying, I have made an agreement. I will allow my eyes to gaze on the beauties and wonders of God's creation, but I am not going to dwell on them and lust for them. My eyes will refrain themselves from gazing with lust upon improper things. That's what he was saying. We should adopt the same covenant as Job did. So integrity means not lying, being honest. At work, at school, everywhere, in all of our associations and relationships, keeping ourselves morally pure in a world that is completely saturated with impurity. And it means keeping ourselves whole and untouched. And that applies to our, like I said, our works, our marriages, the church, friendships, so on. If you are a person of integrity, you're going to refrain from gossip and all these other things we've read about today. Hurtful or malicious talk. Colossians 3 and 8 says, but now you also put them all aside. Anger, wrath, malice, slander, and abusive speech from your mouth. So a person of integrity will also watch not only what they say, but how they say it and who they say it to. Won't they? And integrity is a commitment. You have to commit yourself to being a person of integrity. It's so easy to get tempted to tell one of those little bitty lies. It's also being honest with Christ. That's integrity. You got to be honest with Christ. A person of integrity is not going to read what to do in the Bible and then go off and do something else. The Bible says do this. You go off and do that instead of this. You're not a person of integrity. You're cheating Christ. So how much is integrity worth to us? The Lord never said it was going to be cheap or easy to follow him. Proverbs 22 verse 1 says, a good name is to be more desired than great wealth. Favor is better than silver or gold. There's the answer to the question, what's it worth? It's priceless. Integrity is priceless. Worth immeasurably more than anything and everything on this planet. One Christian of integrity, think about this. One Christian of integrity who will not compromise his or her principles will probably have more effect on someone than 100 preached sermons. You believe that? I do. Just one Christian out in the workplace, out in the community, out in the schools, who will not compromise his or her principles is probably more effective and successful in bringing a soul to Christ than 100 preached sermons by the best preacher you ever heard. If you're a person of integrity, one with a clear conscience, you may never get rich or affluent. You may never become a member of the jet set. You may not be one of the movers and shakers, but you will be able to pillow your head at night and sleep the sleep of the innocent and the comfortable. And say to yourself, I have been true to God today. I've been true to myself. I've been true to everyone I was in contact with today. You may even be able to say, Lord, judge me according to my righteousness and my integrity that is within me. David did it in 7th Psalm, verse 8. If he could get to a point in his relationship with God where he can pray that prayer, I promise you, you and I can get to a point in our relationship with God where we can pray that prayer too. Lord, inspect me, is what David was saying. Inspect my heart. As we close the lesson, we make the invitation available. Anyone who has not responded to the invitation or the call of the Lord to be baptized into Christ for the remission of your sins, or if anybody simply has something they'd like to discuss with the congregation, please make your needs or your desires known while we stand and sing our closing song.